It begins, as it always does, with the smell. Not of blood. No, that comes later. That is the chorus, the symphony. This is the first note. The scent of hot, wet copper. The smell of a newly minted coin, pressed into your palm until the impression of the emperor's face is seared into your skin. It's the smell of the world, just after the rain has fallen on a battlefield, when the water pools in the treads of tanks and the gashes in the earth, and it tastes of rust and promises. You don't know that smell yet, do you? You think you do. You've cut your finger, you've tasted your own life. But that is a single, quiet word. This is the entire language. It is the first thing I remember, and it is the last thing I will ever forget. My name was, it doesn't matter. I was a son of the angel. A blood angel. To say that now feels like speaking a dead language. The words are ash on my tongue. We were beautiful, once. We were the perfect image of our father, Sanguinius. Golden. Noble. Poets and painters who wielded swords because the galaxy demanded it, not because we desired it. We thought our grace was a gift from the emperor. We were wrong. It was a down payment. A deposit on a debt we never knew we owed. I want to tell you how it happened. Not the histories the corpse emperor's scribes will write. Not the lies. I want to tell you the truth. The feel of it. The sound. I need you to understand. Because the scent of copper is on the air again, and I think you might be next. My earliest true memory is not of my birth cradle on Ball, but of the Red Tier, our Gloriana-class flagship. A city of wrought iron and stained glass, of soaring arches that echoed with hymns and the gentle hum of plasma reactors. The air was always scented with incense, polish, and the ozone-clean smell of void shields. We would meditate in the Hall of Sorrows, the faces of our fallen brothers looking down on us from murals, their sacrifice a gentle weight, a reminder of our purpose. And then there was him, the angel, Sanguinius. To look upon him was to understand the concept of perfection. His wings, not of feather, but of light given form. His face, a sculpture of compassion and sorrow. His voice could calm a star and inspire a legion. When he walked among us, it was like a sun passing through a field of flowers. We turned towards him, we basked in his light. We loved him. Gods, we loved him with a ferocity that should have been our first warning. Love is a form of hunger, is it not? A desperate, clawing need to possess, to be acknowledged, to be seen. We fed that hunger to him, and he, in turn, fed it to the thing that slept in our blood. The thirst. You've heard of it, perhaps. A flaw. A curse. A poetic tragedy for a legion of poets. That is the lie we told ourselves. We called it the red thirst, a noble, if painful, burden. In the heat of battle, a fury would take us. A need to claim. To feel the hot, salt iron taste of an enemy's life on our lips. It was a shameful, secret thing. We would hide it, control it, master it through art and meditation. We were pruning a weed whose roots were wrapped around our very souls. I remember the first time I truly felt it. Not as a battle rage, but as a whisper. It was during a compliance action on a world of crystalline forests. The Xenos there, the Shard Singers, their blood was not red, but a shimmering, silver fluid. When one fell before me, its life spilling out in a cascade of liquid mercury, the thirst rose in my throat. It was not a roar. It was a whisper. A sibilant, coaxing voice in the back of my skull. Taste it, it said. It is not just life. It is a song. Drink the song. And I did. I dropped to my knees, my helmet retracting, and I pressed my face to the broken crystal chest of the creature. The silver blood was cold, like ice and electricity. It filled my mouth, and for a moment, I heard it, a faint, chiming melody, a memory of the creature's life. Then it was gone, and only the metallic tang remained. The thirst was quiet. Sated. My sergeant, Cassiel, found me like that. He didn't rebuke me. He didn't look away. He simply placed a hand on my pauldron, his eyes filled with a shared, bottomless pity. The flaw is strong in you, brother, he said, his voice soft. You must be stronger. We were such fools. We thought we were fighting a disease. We were courting a god. The change in our father was so subtle at first. A shift in the light around him. The gilded aura that always surrounded him began to deepen, from gold to a brazen, bloody bronze. His sorrow, always a part of him, seemed to curdle into something sharper, more potent. A simmering rage. He began to spend more time in the training cages. We could hear it. The sound of the energized blades wasn't the clean hiss-crack we were used to. It was a sound of rending, of shrieking metal. He broke training servitors. Not just deactivated them. He unmade them. We would find the wreckage later, not just sliced, but pulverized, torn apart as if by a wild animal. And the whispers started. Not from him, but from the ship itself. In the deep watches of the night cycle, in the space between the hum of the engines, you would hear it. A low, rhythmic pulse. Thump-thump. Thump-thump. It was not the sound of a machine. It was the sound of a heart. A vast, galactic heart, beating somewhere in the dark behind the stars. We said it was the ship's ancient spirit. We told ourselves it was a good omen. Our home was alive. We were deaf to the truth. It was not a heart of life. It was a drum. A war drum. The first true ritual was born of desperation. My brother, Zephyr, had fallen to the thirst during a voidboard action against orcs. He had gone mad, tearing through them, drinking them dry, but it wasn't enough. The thirst had him. He turned on a human serf, a deckhand who had been trapped in the corridor. He painted the walls with the man. When we pulled him off, Zephyr was weeping, his perfect features contorted in a rictus of self-loathing. I couldn't stop, he sobbed. The song, it was so loud. The copper song. Sanguinius himself came to the isolation cell where we held Zephyr. We expected mercy. We expected our Father's boundless compassion to find a way to heal our brother. The angel stood over Zephyr, who was chained to the floor, his golden wings casting long, jagged shadows that seemed to writhe on the walls. The thirst is not a curse, my son, the angel said, and his voice was different. It had a resonance, a harmonic that vibrated in our very bones. It was beautiful and terrible. It is a gift. A focus. You tried to quiet it. You should have listened. He knelt, placing a hand on Zephyr's head. The song is not to be silenced. It is to be conducted. And then, Sanguinius began to sing. It was not a hymn. It was a low, guttural chant, a string of phonemes that had no business in a human throat. The air grew thick. The smell of ozone and incense was burned away, replaced by that overwhelming, cloying scent of hot copper. The shadow of his wings on the wall grew larger, sharper, and for a moment, I saw not the silhouette of feathered wings, but of vast, leathern pinions, hooked and brutal. Zephyr stopped weeping. He looked up, his eyes wide. The pain, the self-hatred, was gone, replaced by a flat, focused calm. A hunger, but a directed one. I hear it now, Father, Zephyr whispered. I hear the rhythm. Sanguinius stood. Then rise. And feed the rhythm. We unlocked his chains. Zephyr stood, not as a penitent, but as a predator. He looked at us, and there was no brotherhood in his eyes. There was only assessment. He walked out, not to a chapel for penance, but to the arming chambers. We had witnessed our first miracle, and we had damned ourselves by applauding it. This became the new normal. The rituals replaced the meditations. The red tier was no longer a place of quiet reflection. It became a temple to a new liturgy, the liturgy of blood. We would gather in the great halls, and the angel would stand before us, and he would speak not of tactics or the imperial truth, but of essence. Of truth. Of the only truth. They lie to you, he would say, his voice a hypnotic melody. The emperor lies. He tells you that war is a means to an end. He tells you to build a kingdom of reason and peace. But what is peace? He would spread his arms, and the brazen light around him would pulse. Peace is stagnation. Peace is decay. Look into the blood. It is never still. It fights, it pumps, it lives, it dies, it nourishes. It is the engine of all things. To deny this is to deny the universe itself. We stopped painting our armor. The glorious red, a symbol of the blood we were willing to shed, was no longer enough. We began to let the blood of our enemies dry upon it. My once pristine warplate became a crusted, blackish-brown tapestry of death. The scent of it, old blood, new blood, Xeno's blood, Human blood, it became our perfume. Our incense. We stopped using bolt guns unless necessary. They were too clean, too distant. The true communion was with the blade, the axe, the chain's word. To feel the vibration as it bit into flesh. To feel the warm spray on your face. To be close enough to see the light go out in your enemy's eyes. That was the sacrament. Cassiel, my once gentle sergeant, became a high priest of this new faith. He crafted the first of the rune axes, etching the brass with glyphs that hurt the eyes to look at, glyphs that seemed to drink the light around them. He taught us the cants of slaughter, phrases we would scream as we killed, focusing the will, offering the pain and the death to the power that was now listening. We never spoke its name. Not then. We didn't have to. We could feel it, a pressure in the back of our skulls, a heat in our veins. It was the source of the copper smell. It was the drummer in the dark. Our battles changed. We now sought not compliance, not conquest. We sought arenas, worlds torn by war, where we could plunge into the thickest fighting, not to end it, but to prolong it, to savor it. We would land and ignore command structures, logistical hubs. We would find the largest battlefield and wade in, turning the tide not for one side or the other, but for the sake of the tide itself. I remember a world, Armageddon. A vast, industrial hellscape. Orcs and humans locked in a grinding war of attrition. We fell upon them like a red storm. I was in the midst of it, my chain axe screaming, my own voice a raw, exultant shriek. I wasn't fighting for the Emperor. I wasn't fighting for Sanguinius. I was fighting for the moment. For the beautiful, perfect clarity of the kill. I saw a human Imperial Guard officer, a colonel, standing on the wreckage of a Lehman Russ, trying to direct his crumbling line. He saw me, and his face filled with hope. "The angels," he cried out. "The angels of blood are with us." I leaped onto the tank, my boots crushing the metal. He looked up at me, this giant in blood-caked armor, and his hope curdled into terror. He finally saw my eyes. He finally saw the truth. "The angel is with us," I growled, my voice a distortion of what it once was. "But not for you." My axe took his head. It was not a clean cut. It was a messy, tearing blow. The blood was a hot geyser that painted my chest plate anew. And in that moment, as his life soaked into the arid soil of Armageddon, I felt a jolt of pleasure so intense, so pure, it was like a religious ecstasy. It was the feeling of a key turning in a lock deep inside me. A lock I never knew was there. This was our daily life. This was our new grace. A cycle of anticipation, ritual, and ecstatic release. We were no longer the blood angels. We were becoming something else. We were the choir, and our Father was our conductor, and the galaxy was our sheet music, written in blood. And the drum never stopped beating. Thump thump, thump thump. The first betrayal was not a betrayal at all. It was a revelation. It was the day the great angel cast off his final veil. We had mustered for a campaign against the word-bearers. Lorder's sons. They had turned from the Emperor, embraced the primordial truth, the gods of the warp. We were to be the instrument of the Emperor's justice. We were the pure, the righteous, the favored sons. I stood in the mustering hall, shoulder to shoulder with my brothers. 10,000 of us. The air was thick enough with the scent of blood and brass to taste. The psychic pressure was a physical weight, a heat haze that made the world shimmer. Sanguinius stood before us on a great dais of black iron. He was not as he had been. The sorrow was gone, burned away in a furnace of absolute certainty. His wings, once of light, were now physical things, vast and powerful, the color of dried blood. His armor was no longer gold, but a dark, burnished brass, etched with scenes of such exquisite violence they seemed to move when you looked away. In his hand, he held not a sword, but a massive, double-headed axe. The Red Grail, a weapon that hummed with a silent, screaming power. My sons, his voice boomed, not through the vox, but directly into our minds. They call us traitors. They, who kneel to a corpse on a throne of lies. They, who deny the true nature of the cosmos. They preach a truth they do not understand, while we embody it. A roar went up from 10,000 throats. It was not a cheer. It was a challenge. a bellow of pure, undiluted fury. Lorder's children come to preach their truth, Sanguinius continued, his eyes burning with a red light. Let us show them the only truth that matters. The truth of the blade. The truth of the axe. The truth that is written in the blood of worlds. He raised the red grail high above his head. We have held back. We have tempered the gift in our veins. No more. Today we unleash it. Today we let the thirst become a flood. Today we offer a symphony of slaughter that will echo through the warp and be heard in the halls of eternity. And then he spoke a word. A single, guttural, world-shattering syllable that had no meaning and all meaning. It was the true name of the thirst. The effect was instantaneous. It was like a dam breaking inside my skull. A lifetime of control, of restraint, of channeling the rage into art and poetry evaporated in an instant. A red film descended over my vision. The world became simple. Everything was either a threat or prey. The whispers that had been a background murmur became a roaring chorus in my mind, a cacophony of need and hate and a desperate, clawing hunger. I looked at my brother to my left, Brother Claudio. I saw not a battle brother, but a vessel, a container of hot, salty, vibrant blood. The thirst demanded it. The rhythm demanded it. I saw the same understanding in his eyes. He looked at me, and his lips pulled back from his teeth in a snarl. There was no brotherhood. There was only the hunger. The order to attack never came. It was unnecessary. The 10,000 of us simply erupted. We turned on each other. It was not a battle. It was a frenzy. A feeding. Chain's words roared. Axes fell. Fingers became claws, tearing at armor seals. Teeth gnashed, seeking flesh. The beautiful, perfect hall became a charnel house. The air filled with the sound of screaming, not of pain, but of a rapturous, killing joy. I drove my fist through Claudio's chest plate, the ceramite cracking under the force of my new, terrible strength. I felt his ribs splinter. I felt his hearts burst in my grip. I pulled my hand back, clutching a pulsing, steaming mass of flesh. I brought it to my mouth and I drank. The blood was not just life. It was power. It was affirmation. It was a prayer answered. I looked up, my face a mask of gore, and I saw him. Sanguinius. He was not watching. He was participating. He waded through the melee, his axe a blur, butchering his own sons. And he was laughing. A sound of pure, unadulterated exultation. It was the most beautiful and the most horrifying sound I have ever heard. This was the final ritual. The sacrifice of the sons. We were culling our own weakness, offering our own blood to the power we served. Those who survived would be stronger, purer, more focused. The rest were just fuel. When the frenzy ended, perhaps an hour later, perhaps a day, time had lost all meaning. The floor of the hall was a knee-deep slurry of blood, offal, and shattered armor. Of 10,000, perhaps 2,000 of us remained. We stood, panting, drenched, our bodies humming with power, our minds finally, blissfully silent. The thirst was quiet. For now, Sanguinius stood in the center of it all, untouched by the gore, radiating a terrifying, divine power. He looked upon his surviving sons, and he smiled. Now, he said, his voice soft yet carrying to every corner of the silent hall. Now we are ready. Now we are truly my sons. No longer blood angels. You are the flesh tearers. And the galaxy will tear with us. The name was a brand. It seared away the last of who we were. We were flesh tearers. And we were hungry. The war that followed was not a war. It was a harvest. We fell upon the word-bearers fleet not with strategy, but with an animal ferocity that shocked even them. They were fanatics, but their fanaticism was cerebral, theological. Ours was visceral, elemental. We did not board their ships. We infested them. We used our assault rams not as military tools, but as teeth, punching through hulls and disgorging a tide of screaming, frothing madness. We ignored void shields, weapon batteries, command decks. We sought the crew quarters, the mess halls, the places where life was most concentrated. I led a pack of my brothers through the corridors of the word-bearer's battleship, the Blessed Martyr. The air was thick with their incense and the ozone of their sorceries. It was a pathetic attempt to mask the true scent, the fear. We could smell it on them. It was a spice, a delicacy. We found a company of word-bearers preparing a defensive position in a main thoroughfare. Their dark apostle was chanting, raising a shimmering shield of dark energy. My brother, Raldoran, once a noble captain, now a hulking monster with fused armor and protruding fangs, simply laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. He charged, not at the shield, but at the wall next to it. He punched through the plasteel, tearing a hole into a secondary conduit. A geyser of superheated steam erupted, cooking the word-bearers from the inside of their formation. Their screams were delicious. We were upon them before their shield could reset. My world shrank to the simple, perfect calculus of violence. Swing the axe. Feel the impact. Dodge the return blow. Lunge. Bite. Tear. Drink. A word-bearer swung a Crozius at my head. I didn't block it. I let it crash against my pauldron, feeling the ceramite crack, feeling the bone beneath bruise. The pain was a bright, sharp note in the symphony. It focused me. I grabbed his weapon arm and twisted, the bones snapping like dry twigs. I head-butted him, my helmetless forehead crushing his nose, and then I sank my teeth into his throat, gulping down the hot, corrupt blood. It tasted of ashes and heresy. It was exquisite. This was the escalation. The transformation was complete. We were no longer space marines. We were a natural disaster. A plague of teeth and axes. The whispers were gone, replaced by a single, driving imperative, as fundamental as a heartbeat. Kill. Maim. Burn. And through it all, the angel led us. Sanguinius was no longer a general. He was a force of nature. He fought at the forefront, a whirlwind of brass and blood, his axe hewing through terminators and dreadnoughts as if they were paper. He was no longer our father. He was our god. The god of the red sands, the brass citadels, the eightfold path of skulls. We learned new rituals. The building of the throne. After a battle, we would take the skulls of the strongest, most worthy foes, the champions, the psychers, the commanders, and pile them at the feet of Sanguinius. He would sit upon this throne of bone and broken dreams, and he would be still. And we would know he was communing with the drumming presence, taking its counsel. The final escalation came on the world of Cygnus Prime, a world already damned, given over to a different, caressing, sickly power. The ruinous powers were at war with each other, and we were the chosen instrument of the Skull Lord. But that is a story for another time. The memory is as sharp. It cuts me still. For now, know this, the fall was not a single event. It was a chain, a cascade. Each link was a ritual, a betrayal, a surrender. Each one took us deeper into the red. Each one made the drumbeat louder, until it was not a sound we heard, but the rhythm of our own stolen hearts. There are moments in the quiet. Not true quiet. The quiet is a myth, but in the lulls between the screaming and the killing. In the time it takes to fly from one slaughter to the next. In these moments, the ghost of who I was sometimes visits me. It comes as a memory of a scent. Not copper, but of the lavender fields that grew in the hydroponic gardens of the Red Tier. A clean, simple smell. Or the taste of water, pure and cold, from the aqua filters of Baal. Not blood. Water. It comes as a sound. Not the drum, nor the roar of a chain axe. But the sound of my brother, Miros, singing an old Terran lament, his voice a clear, sad baritone that would echo through the practice cages. I can barely remember the melody now. It's like trying to hold smoke. These memories are a poison, a weakness. The whispers, when they return, are furious at these lapses. The past is a corpse. They hiss, a chorus of needles in my mind. It is rot. It is sentiment. Sentiment is a chain. Break it. And I try. By the throne, I try. I focus on the now. The feel of the dried blood caked on my armor. The comforting weight of my axe in my hand. The constant, low-level hum of the thirst in my veins. A familiar companion now, a lodestone. But sometimes, the ghost is strong. I remember a face. Captain Archeo. A young, brilliant warrior, beloved of the Legion. He had a light to him. A reflection of the angel as he once was. After the fall, that light became a target. The others resented him. His nobility was an insult to our new truth. His compassion was a disease. I saw him, after a particularly brutal compliance on an agri-world. He was standing over the body of a child. A little girl, no more than 10 years old, caught in the crossfire. She was clutching a simple doll made of straw. Archeo had taken off his helmet. He was weeping. The tears cut clean tracks through the blood on his face. I felt something then. A twinge. A memory of a feeling. Pity? Grief? I don't know. It was a foreign entity inside me, a parasite of the past. Cassiel saw it too. He walked over to Archeo, his rune axe dripping. He didn't say a word. He just looked from Archeo's weeping face to the dead child, and then back to Archeo. His own face, once noble and stern, was a mask of brutal pragmatism. The blood is the blood, brother, Cassiel said, his voice flat. It is all offering. Her fear, your grief, it is all fuel. Do not let it go to waste. He then knelt, and with a swift, practiced motion, he collected the child's blood in a small, brass phial he carried on his belt. He stood, offering the phial to Archeo. Drink. Make her death part of your strength. That is the only honor left. Archeo looked at the phial, his face a contortion of horror and revulsion. He looked at me, his eyes pleading for an ally, for a fragment of the past. And I looked away. I felt the thirst stir. The girl's blood smelled sweet. Innocent. A rare vintage. The ghost of my old self was screaming, but its voice was faint, drowned out by the drum and the hunger. Archeo refused the phial. He turned and walked away, into the smoldering ruins of the farmstead. He was found later, his own chains were buried in his chest. He had chosen the ultimate heresy. He had chosen to deny the gift. He had chosen silence over the song. We did not mourn him. We used his body for the ritual. His blood was potent, rich with defiance. Sanguinius himself took the skull. It sits on his throne still, I think. A reminder. That was the day the ghost of my old self almost died for good. I saw the choice, clear as a shard of glass, surrender to the new truth, or be consumed by it. There was no going back. The path behind us was not just closed, it had never existed. It was a lie we told ourselves to make the horror palatable. The temptation is not to resist. That is a fool's hope. The temptation is to surrender completely, to let the last shred of you dissolve in the sea of rage, to become a perfect, empty vessel for the will of Khorne. No more memories, no more pain, no more ghost of lavender fields, just the pure, simple, beautiful violence. It would be so easy to stop fighting the whispers, to stop seeing Archeo's face, to just let go. The only thing that holds me back is a different memory. A memory from before the fall. It is not a clean memory. It is tainted, but it is mine. I was in the observation deck, looking at the star fields. Sanguinius came and stood beside me. This was years before the change. He was light and sorrow. They call us angels, he had said, his voice soft. But an angel is just a messenger. A servant. What is the message we are meant to deliver, I wonder? I had no answer then. I think I have one now. The message is the axe. The message is the blood. The message is the eightfold beat of the drum in the dark. But is it? Is it really? The heresy. The word means nothing. It is a label for those who lost. We were not heretics. We were the unveilers. The climax of our journey was not the siege of Terra. That was merely the final, grandest performance. The crescendo. The true climax was the moment our father faced his brother, the arch-traitor, Horus Lupercal. We had mustered in the Sol system. The system was a wound in the galaxy. The warp boiled at its edges. The battlefields around Terra were a swirling maelstrom of fire and metal. And the song, the great song, it was a deafening roar. A billion deaths screamed in unison, a symphony that threatened to shatter reality itself. We tore through the orbital defenses. The Imperial Palace, that gilded cage, lay below us. And deep within it, on the vengeful spirit, our father's fated prey awaited. We did not land on Terra. Sanguinius would not be denied his prize. He led the boarding action on Horus's flagship personally. We were his retinue. his chosen, his flesh-tearers. The vengeful spirit was a nightmare of conflicting realities. One corridor would be a cold, functional starship. The next would be a forest of weeping faces. The next, a desert of black glass under a green sky. The powers of the warp were unleashed here, fighting for dominance. We did not care. We had one objective, one purpose. The whispers were a single, unified shriek now. Kill for him. Blood for the angel. Skulls for the throne. We fought through things that had no name. Demons of shifting colors and impossible geometries. Traitor legions who had sold themselves to other, weaker gods. We tore through them all. We were a wave of brass and blood, an unstoppable tide of focused hatred. I lost brothers. Dozens. Hundreds. Raldoran was pulled into a shimmering portal by a creature of many mouths, his final roar cut short. Cassiel took a blast of sorcerous fire to the chest, his rune axe shattering, his body turning to dust before my eyes. Their deaths were not tragedies. They were offerings. Their blood strengthened those of us who remained. Finally, we broke through to the command bridge. It was a vast, cathedral-like space, wreathed in a baleful, eye-watering light. And there, in the center, stood Horus Lupercal. He was a giant, swollen with blasphemous power. Armor of nightmare black, the talon of Horus crackling with malevolent energy. He was a god of a different pantheon, a lord of lies and change. And facing him, alone, was Sanguinius. My father seemed smaller in that titanic space, yet his presence was a crushing weight. He was not a figure of light anymore. He was a thing of pure, honed fury. The blood-red wings were spread wide. The brass armor gleamed in the hellish light. The red grail was held ready. He was the embodiment of murder. Brother, Horus's voice was a tectonic rumble, layered with 1,000 other voices. You see the truth now, do you not? Join me. Together, we can unseat the Corpse Emperor. We can rule this new age. Sanguinius did not speak. He tilted his head, as if listening to a distant melody. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face. You still speak of thrones, brother. Sanguinius's voice was a soft, deadly whisper that carried across the vast chamber. You are still a slave to ambition. I have been freed. He took a step forward. I do not want your throne. I do not want your empire. Another step. The air began to crackle with psychic pressure. The scent of copper was so thick it was hard to breathe. I only want, he said, his voice dropping to an intimate, hungry growl, your blood. He launched himself forward. There was no noble challenge. No heroic cry. It was the lunge of a predator. The fight was not a duel. It was a slaughter. But not the one the legends tell. Horus was powerful, yes. He was the favored of 4 gods. But Sanguinius was the vessel of one. And that one's desire is pure, undiluted, and absolute. Horus struck with the talon, a blow that could shred atoms. Sanguinius didn't dodge. He met it with the haft of the red grail. The impact was a sound that broke reality in the immediate area. The deck plates buckled. Several of my brothers closest to them were simply vaporized by the shockwave. Sanguinius twisted, his wings beating, and brought the axe around in a decapitating arc. Horus barely blocked it with his own massive claw, but the force of the blow sent him stumbling back. You see, Sanguinius roared, his voice now the voice of the storm. Your power is a lie. A committee of voices. Mine is a single note. The first note. The last note. He pressed the attack. Blow after blow, each one faster, harder, more brutal than the last. Horus, the master strategist, the consummate warrior, was being overwhelmed by a sheer, mindless, perfect fury. The talon was a blur, deflecting, parrying, but it was not enough. A blow from the red grail sheared through Horus's armor at the shoulder, biting deep. The War Master bellowed in pain and shock. I watched, my own thirst screaming in sympathy, in ecstasy. This was it. The ultimate offering. The skull of a brother pre-march. The death that would shake the galaxy to its foundations. Horus, desperate, unleashed a wave of raw warp energy. It was a tide of madness, a kaleidoscope of every emotion and fear. It washed over Sanguinius. And it did nothing. The angel laughed. You try to poison me with feeling? I have burned all feeling in the fire of rage. There is only the blood, Horus. Only the kill. He surged through the psychic storm, untouched and scathed. He was Khorne's ultimate answer to the machinations of the other gods. A will so focused, so single-minded, that it was immune to doubt, to fear, to temptation. He brought the Red Grail down in a final, apocalyptic chop. It did not behead Horus. It split him. From shoulder to hip, the axe cleaved through the War Master's augmented body, through the dark power that sustained him. There was a moment of absolute silence, a vacuum of sound, and then a shockwave of pure force erupted from Horus's dying form. It threw me back, shattered my armor, broke my bones. I felt a psychic scream that was not a sound but a death agony that echoed across every soul in the system. When my vision cleared, Sanguinius was standing over the two halves of his brother. He was drenched in blood that smoked with dark energy. He knelt, and with a sound of cracking bone, he wrenched the skull from Horus's body. He held it aloft, and a roar tore from his throat that was not his own. It was the voice of the galaxy's heart. The voice of the drum. Blood for the angel. Skulls for the throne. We took the ship. The death of Horus broke the will of his sons. The siege was not won, but its tide had turned. The traitors were leaderless, fractured. But the victory was not for the emperor. We carried the body of Sanguinius from the vengeful spirit. Not his body. He lived. We carried the body of Horus. A trophy. The ultimate prize. As we marched through the ruins of the Imperial Palace, towards the Golden Throne, we were not saviors. We were conquerors. The Imperial fists, the custodes, they looked upon us with terror. They saw the blood-drenched angels, their perfect father now a grim, brass-clad deity, holding the skull of his brother. They saw the truth. We had not come to save Terra. We had come to claim it. That was a long time ago. The galaxy burns. The corpse emperor sits on his throne, a prisoner in his own palace, while we continue the great hunt. I am old now. Older than you can comprehend. My armor is more blood than ceramite, fused to my skin. My axe has taken more lives than a plague. The ghost of who I was is silent. I killed it. I drank its blood, and I found it weak. I stand on a ridge, looking down at a world soon to die. The drums are beating. The call to war. My brothers gather around me, their eyes glowing with the same red light as mine. We are the flesh-tearers, the chosen of the angel, the heralds of the skull throne. There is no past. There is no future. There is only the now, the moment of the kill, the ecstasy of the offering. I have told you my story. Not for absolution. There is no such thing. Not for warning. It is far too late for that. I have told you because the story is a seed, and I have planted it in your mind. Can you hear it? Beneath the noise of your world? Beneath the hum of your machines and the chatter of your kind? Listen. Thump thump. It's faint now. Just a whisper. A rumble under the floorboards of your reality. Thump thump. But it's getting louder. Thump thump. It's the rhythm of your own heart. And it's learning a new song. So I will leave you with this. A final truth. A revelation that has been waiting for you since the first copper coin was minted, since the first drop of blood was spilled in anger. The angel fell, and in his fall, he did not break. He awakened, and he is so very hungry,